All right, so we're live on the Lax Journal podcast with Kyle Hayes, who's the assistant coach over, I guess up because we're in Long Island, up in Babson College. Kyle, how you doing today?
Good, Corey. It's good to hear from you. Coach Batty, I know, spent a lot of time on the island this past summer, and I feel like that's probably a major reason on why I'm here right now. So, I love what you guys are doing with the high school journal, and I follow it all the time. Especially with the guys that we have coming in and the guys we're looking at and in future class. So, I was definitely excited to hop on the podcast.
Yeah, man, we're glad to have you on here. It's obvious you're recruiting the island because you got some studs in the 20 class coming to you. You want to talk real quick about some of the guys that are going to be freshmen on campus next year?
Yeah, so in the 20 class, we're really excited about the two guys we have coming in. First and foremost, I think these two specifically, and I know we're going to talk a little bit later on, the type of recruit we're looking to bring in, but I honestly think we're bringing in two of the best leaders from Long Island. Ford Carney, is a two-way midi from Garden City, and I think that's a program, obviously one of the perennial high school programs in the country. I know we were so excited to be able to, get Ford to commit to our program. And, we definitely do our research and, we're talking to high school coaches and club coaches when it's when it applies, about certain guys and how they fit in the system and how they lead their team. And we were able to go see Ford's game, Garden City against MacArthur. It was a game where they were looking to break the record, against MacArthur. And I think they had won, over 45 games in a row. And this was to break the Long Island record. And, I know Ford was super excited about it. He from what I know, he's the guy who gets the guys going in the locker room, leader on the practice field, leader on the game field, and get involved all year, at running back for them. And, they had a tough loss to MacArthur in the regular season. We were able to see Ford after the game, and he was definitely hurt and a little bit disappointed, but you can just tell that he was gonna get the team going back in the right direction. And a couple of weeks later, we're watching the game live as we're recruiting in Philadelphia, and we're seeing that Garden City wins 14-12 after Ford had a couple touchdowns and just knew how to lead that team through adversity against a MacArthur team that a lot of parents and families and fans following didn't think that they were going to make that upset. But Ford is phenomenal. We're so excited.
Who's your other guy coming in the 20 class? I know you mentioned you had two.
Yeah, so I was just going to go on to Brian Hanley. He's the goalie at Bethpage. The last school I was at, we did really well with Bethpage High School being sort of a pipeline, and every student athlete we've had from there has been a phenomenal leader, phenomenal lacrosse player. And I've probably seen Brian play the past 2-3 years since he was a freshman at Bethpage, and we were lucky enough to see him in the summer again. Brian had a huge interest in entrepreneurship, even though I know he was getting looked at by maybe a couple smaller Division I schools, really good Division III. But I feel like Brian really didn't want to play anywhere else. And when he came here and came to campus and interviewed with admissions and spoke with us, I think Brian kind of blows you away with what his expectations are, what his vision is as a player. And you can see that live on the field when he's playing with Bethpage. He also brings definitely a different style of play with the goalie position. He's a little bit unorthodox and can play out of the net a little bit, but that's why I think we're lucky to have him. But I think when he communicates with coaches, when he communicates with his peers, just a super impressive young man. And we're very happy to have both Brian and Ford come to us next year. And the guys we're identifying and have on campus already in the 21 class. I think it's going to be a really impressive class there as well.
Let's talk a little bit about your background here, Kyle. Talk to us about where your experience lied as a player. Talk about like when you found out or I guess figured out or decided that you wanted to get into college coaching, and then talk about what led you to Babson.
Yeah, so I definitely have sort of a different background and different journey than a lot of full-time coaches in college. So I started out, went to high school at Sewanaka High School in Nassau County. So right outside Queens, we're in the same district as, Full Park High School, Cary High School, Elmont, and New Hyde Park. And, Sewanaka, great athletes. We had a great football program, but unfortunately there wasn't real youth lacrosse in that area. So I grew up playing, playing baseball, and I think I was in the seventh grade, or actually eighth grade. I was about to walk into the baseball meeting, and had actually walked into the wrong meeting and walked into the cross meeting with, Long Island, most of the football coaches are the lacrosse coaches, at least in Nassau County. And my coach had shut the door, made me sit down and listen to what they had to pitch. And, a day later I became hooked, and, it became obviously the biggest part of my life. So ever since then, again, I was absolutely hooked on the game. We, definitely went through some bumps. You're going against some of the best teams in the country, in Conference B, Nassau County. So, we're playing against the Garden Cities, Manhasset, Bethpage, Hewlett, you name it. And, you got to learn some things really quickly. So we had great coaches, Coach Sackowich and Coach Burgess, who could easily be coaching different high schools to state championships, but they were passionate about growing the game and developing the guys at Sewanaka, and I'll forever be, grateful for that and learning from them. So what really made me want to coach, I knew that was going to be my goal at high school, just being around our football coaches, our lacrosse coaches in high school. I knew that that's the only thing I really wanted to do when I grew up. And as far as college lacrosse goes, I had, been recruited to, various Division III schools. I was definitely a late bloomer in terms of, being a player. So I was at Plattsburgh State my freshman year, with Coach Kavanaugh, who's at WestCon now, who I'm still very close with, and he's a phenomenal recruiter. He's one of the best. But out of high school, I had always, kind of known about the MCLA, so the Men's Collegiate Lacrosse Association. So what most people know as club lacrosse, but it's for schools that already, they don't have Division I programs. So in the SCLC, which is a combination of SEC and ACC teams like, Florida State, Florida, Alabama, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, and then, schools on the West Coast, pretty much all the big ones where Utah and, schools like Michigan came from. So like Arizona State, Arizona, Cal. I had known about those programs just because I had known somebody who transferred from a Division I program to Clemson. So Clemson, where I was going to go, where I wanted to go initially and play in the MCLA, that didn't really work out. So I ended up at Plattsburgh my freshman year. And the new coach at Ole Miss, who's in the MCLA and in the conference, that's called the SCLC, is from Massapequa High School, had coached at Massapequa and coached at Adelphi for a number of years, and actually went down to take the head club job at Ole Miss. And I had a couple of teammates, at Plattsburgh from Massapequa that knew him well. And, you just start to see some really exciting things. Inside the Cross would be posting, some different, blogs on Ole Miss's season, and, kind of showed me a different perspective on what the MCLA is actually like. There's definitely a misconception that, you're practicing 2 times a week and, practicing in, different helmets and different gloves and playing a couple games on a weekend. And that's, really couldn't be further from what I experienced, and, further from what our, competition had set for their standards. So another big draw from that was in the MCLA, there's a player board that assists the coaching staff with things like, administration, scheduling, recruiting. So I was in the scheduling and recruiting process, bringing recruits on campus and meeting with them as a 19-year-old and 20-year-old kid. And that experience was pretty invaluable and what I want to do moving forward. So that led to me after I graduated. Our head coach
Kyle, what was the recruiting pitch at Ole Miss besides like it's a beautiful, amazing place, you got big time football? Like, take us through that process of if maybe a kid came on campus and he was thinking about coming to play club lacrosse there.
Yeah, so we usually would have, your basic inquiries, just like, college coaches experience where, certain inquiries are coming in. They fill out a recruiting form. Maybe our head coaches set something up. And with the fall, which is where, a lot of, recruits and kids want to come up to campus, that's when obviously a lot is going on in the big, SEC, at the big SEC schools with, football games and everything like that. So, our practices in the fall, there's no restrictions really on how many times you can practice in the fall. So we pretty much go until, November. So usually I would have them, meet us at practice, kind of just sit and kind of watch and talk to, different players and the different student athletes there, communicate with the coaches, just basically what you'd experience at, a lot of, NCAA programs. Then we would kind of tour campus. I would have them meet, some of the other guys. It might have been a little bit more informal than, some of your, NCAA visits, but, I would just try to do the best I could to, have them understand what the experience would be at Ole Miss, and that this isn't just, play on the weekends, hop in your car and meet each other at the field type program. It's, we're building something here, and, we're competing against some really, top, quality programs that are ran like, some top Division III and certain D2, D1 programs. And I think, they really had appreciated that. And then obviously when they're there with their parents and get to experience the, the Grove and the football atmosphere, it kind of sells itself.
And what was your, after you finish up at Ole Miss, where was your first coaching stop?
So my first coaching stop, I had, worked in the city for, maybe a couple months when I moved back to Long Island, and I just knew that this was, I knew I wanted to coach, and I knew it was going to be a tough road since I had played in the MCLA and wasn't, a D3, D1, All-American. So, selling myself was going to be, a tougher route than most. So Coach IL, who's from Massapequa, who was the Ole Miss coach, had played with the new Wheaton College head coach, who are actually in the NEWMAC, the same conference as Babson. And, I went to meet and interview with him, and, kind of just explain my experience like I'm explaining to you now, and my passion for the game, and, my knowledge, X's and O's wise, and, where I want to see myself, within the recruiting process. And, again, Coach Hart, Kyle Hart, he had started the program at Augustana in Illinois, built that program and brought them to the NCAA tournament within 5 years. And, I still remember meeting with him to this day, and we're still very good friends. He had said that, 80% of your job with college coaching is going to be recruiting, because you can be the best coach in the world against the worst coach in the world. But if that worst coach has the best players, nine times out of 10 that guy's going to get the win. So, working with Kyle at Wheaton was definitely sort of a crash course for me in terms of, the college game, whether it's practice planning, X's and O's on both sides, and the recruiting part at the NCAA level, working with a private school that, has different admission standards and different timeline standards within admissions than, a big school like Ole Miss would have, or, a different, school that's maybe more business oriented or nursing oriented, as opposed to a school that's, private and with, more of a liberal arts identity. But, was there for a year. It was an unbelievable experience. Again, it's just, tough for somebody graduating and trying to go through that path that doesn't have that ultimate, playing experience background. You definitely have to hop around a little bit and coaches and have to prove yourself, before you get that full-time opportunity. So, we made it to the NEWMAC semifinals, competed against the Springfields and MITs and then obviously the Babsons of the world. So, that first year, working for Kyle was, definitely invaluable, and he was an amazing mentor and still is to this day.
Great. And then, so I guess, jumping around a little bit, getting experience in your current conference, a couple years back, did that kind of give you a leg up when you were, looking to get the Babson job, over the last couple months, or did that not really matter?
I want to say that definitely played a piece into it. especially just having a little bit more of a knowledge of the area, recruiting wise, and knowing New England, and being in the conference. But even over 3 years, the NEWMAC conference has improved so much that
Mm-hmm.
with the addition of Coast Guard and some different coaching changes, programs, we're looking to turn it into a 2 and 3 bid league down the road.
Mm-hmm. So after Wheaton, where'd you go?
So at the end of the year, and I feel like this was one of was a really big piece for me in my coaching experience. I was connected with Mike Winkoff, at FOG, and he had spoke to our coach at Ole Miss about one of the guys at FOG, a senior who was maybe looking to go that route, and we ended up connecting there, and the Ole Miss coach did a really good job of promoting me to Mike essentially, and then I was able to coach with FOG over the summer, and that gave me sort of another different perspective on the club side of things, and coaching with clubs that do things the right way in terms of their teaching, where they want to place guys, their skill work and development work, and that had led me to a position down in Charlotte, North Carolina. After that, coaching high school. So I coached in Charlotte, North Carolina at a school called Marvin Ridge, who was straight off a state championship down there. And I think going back to coach high school, especially switching from defense to offense down there, was maybe the best thing I've done for my career. The head coach down there was Kevin Mack, who played at Ohio State, played for the Hounds, young coach. And I think when you go from college to high school, you really see how great some of these high school coaches are. And most of these high school coaches could step in, any of our feet as college coaches and do a phenomenal job. And we know that. So I think working at the high school level and seeing the growth down in Charlotte, in the Charlotte area, I want to say 90% of the coaches are from New York. So, you're working against some great coaches, and the game is just absolutely exploding down there.
It's good. It's good that you got the experience and appreciation for the different aspects of coaching in the lacrosse world. Not many coaches will go from being a college coach to working at a club program to working at a high school program and then working your way back up. I feel like, your experience in all those different areas probably really helped shape, you to be the coach you are today, which is great. I think, as we kind of look through your path to Babson, it's like you took away so many different pieces, from each and every stop, which is pretty cool. And one other thing that stands out to me that, is unique in your journey is just how you're able to go to all these different places all across the country. I feel like not many people are so willing to uproot from maybe where they're from and go different places. For you, why is that something that you think you've been able to do? Is it something that you're comfortable with, or is it part of you just kind of getting out of your comfort zone and making things happen?
I think I became comfortable after, going to Ole Miss from Long Island. Definitely had kind of expanded my view. And that's that was another big reason of me going there, having teammates, that played in the conference with, the Gilmans and Loyola Blakefields and the St. Paul's, having teammates from, California and Florida and Atlanta, just kind of opened my view a little bit. Especially just having friends all over the country, sort of program that definitely, it's one, a culture shock, but two, you learn from it. And me graduating and being, 22 and single, it definitely makes things a little bit easier to move around than,
sure.
If I had in a serious relationship and wanted to, stay in the same area. So I was lucky enough to be able to bounce around for a couple of years. And again, it's something I knew I had to do to eventually be somewhere as a full-time coach at a place like Babson. That's really paid off. So,
but I want to keep, since we have about 10 minutes left, I want to keep working our way towards your current position at Babson. Let's talk about the last stops that you made before getting your job here, and then I want to talk about Babson as a school and what makes it unique. So do you want to quickly kind of go through, after your time down in Carolina, where you went, and then talk about, let's talk a little about the school that you're at right now.
Sure. Yeah. So after Carolina, I also coached with Ryan Flanagan's Team 24/7 team, who was another unbelievable mentor. He had connected me with doing the scouts for the New York Lizards. So, from there, I got to learn from Coach Selena, Coach Danahy, Coach Doc, who are just obviously all unbelievable coaches. And then I got to be a grad assistant right after that, knowing I wanted to get back into college coaching, for Coach Ricardo at Misericordia University in Pennsylvania. And I can't say enough about my time there. I loved every single day. I stepped in the office, a small school in Dallas, Pennsylvania that most people have never heard of. And we won 23 games in 2 years. And just seeing the culture that coach has built and to be able to be a part of that and learn from that, that really taught me that the culture of your team and how you build your program year to year is by far the most important part of any team that has success. So I think, Coach Batty at the Babson had kind of saw that, and that I'd, been through some different paths. I think that, was a big reason in me, getting to Babson. So going on to Babson, again, I was hired in, probably August. So once I was finished with my graduate assistant contract, I was looking for a new home. I knew I wanted to go somewhere where, we were competing for conference championships and down the line competing for, national championships. And why shouldn't that be your goal? So when I went on to the visit to Babson, interviewed and just saw Coach Batty's vision and what we have building here at the school, it just, kind of blew me away on the interview. And, I'm, extremely grateful every single day that I get to work at somewhere like Babson. So
when you go on the Babson website, the first thing, I'm talking more like the academic driven website.
Sure.
The first thing they say is Babson's ranked #1 in entrepreneurship. Talk a little bit about what entrepreneurship is for maybe a young high school student who's maybe never heard that term. Talk about also, why that makes your school unique and, why it's really benefiting a lot of the student athletes that end up coming to Babson and graduating from Babson.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception too with us being the #1 entrepreneurship school that every kid who graduates here is going to start their own company or start their own business. So us being #1 in entrepreneurship and our vision towards that, it's more of what we call entrepreneurship thought and action. So ET&A, and what that really means is we want to be hands-on with everything that we do. We want to cultivate an atmosphere of being creative, being collaborative, analyzing things and learning from failures. So one of the more interesting programs we have here is what we call FME program. So for all freshmen who come in here, so the first years that are here at Babson, they actually have to get in a group of 10 to, maybe it's 10 to 15 students. And this is your first, class as a freshman. Babson actually gives you real dollars to start your own business. And you have one person that's a CEO, one person that's on the sales side, one person that's on the marketing side. And you're kind of, navigating what your business is going to be, for that entire year. So be able to put that on your resume, #1, that you were part of a startup company as a freshman and were able to learn from your failures and grow your business. You're not being facetious about that. That's real. And,
yeah, I feel like that's like one of the best ways to really teach entrepreneurship because it's so hands-on, it's real. And from what I've been told visiting campus and meeting with some of the old coaches is like some of the students actually go on and pursue a career, or at least, they start their professional career using that same business concept that they started as a freshman, which is pretty neat. Have you heard of stories similar to that? And maybe have there been some lacrosse guys that have been a part of, a business that kind of took off?
Yeah. So for one, our defensive coordinator, Coach Bunick, he works full time for Primetime Lacrosse. We actually have, we have, I believe, 5 full-time assistants here in athletic department that, played and went to Babson. So it's not just, you're going into the finance field or you're going to the accounting field. You can do whatever you want with this degree. So the guys who, founded and run Primetime Lacrosse, are Babson alum. I know Coach Bunick, it kind of brings, what he learned here to that club scene and, how they run events and how they run tournaments. And, I think they're one of the best of the best at what they do, from that perspective. And I think, having a Babson degree and going through that curriculum here really helps what they do. But if you go through the alumni at Babson, it's extremely impressive. And you would never think, Arthur Blank, who founded Home Depot, is the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, just made a $50 million donation to the school to build onto our school of entrepreneurship. The alum who created Ring, where you're seeing everywhere now, the doorbell. There's just countless of impressive alum. Our new president is a Babson alum, got his MBA here. He co-founded Jiffy Lube, and now his vision for where the school's heading is going to one, make our school that much better, but two, is going to really make our lacrosse program really excel.
What's really cool that I remember talking to you about this a couple weeks back is not just how Babson is so unique, to the rest of the colleges and universities that are out there in the country, but Babson is also unique to other colleges around its conference. But so are other schools in your conference too, right? Like, Babson, might kind of tailor towards the entrepreneur. Springfield might tailor towards the coach/teacher. You want to talk a little bit about your conference and just why it's unique relative to the Division III landscape in lacrosse?
Yeah. So, and this is something I had a little bit of insight on, while I was at, but it's even grown since then. So, with the NEWMAC, and when we have recruits on campus, and it's been, almost, we've had about 5 up this week. We'll have a ton on for the rest of January as we start our preseason. And again, really excited about where the 21 class is heading. But from a NEWMAC perspective, we pitch the NEWMAC. We pitch our conference when kids come to campus, and we pitch each school because, we're very niche in terms of what we do, as institutions. So we don't necessarily run into each other a ton of recruiting. So you have Babson, who's been ranked the #1 entrepreneurship school in the country, one of the best investment business schools in the country. Then you have MIT. So MIT is obviously maybe the best school in the world. Coach O'Keefe does an amazing job there. He's been there for a couple of years and just absolutely grinds recruiting. They have ridiculous athletic facilities now, an athletic director there that wants to win. And then you have Springfield. So if we tell recruits, I'm sure that you've been coached by a Springfield guy at some point in your cross program that churns out coaches, physical therapists, trainers, and they won the conference every year. And, I think they get snubbed a little bit in preseason rankings, especially after they, made it to where they were in the conference last year. But as long as they keep winning, they're the standard in the conference. After that, you have the Coast Guard Academy, who's, this might be their 6th year in existence. And the team has just absolutely skyrocketed in terms of their program. These are absolute dudes who are looking at Army and Navy. They just bring something different to the conference from a lacrosse perspective. These are guys who are jumping off helicopters at 5 in the morning. So I think they just bring another athletic piece into the conference that's just different. And that's one that we're going to have to, work ourselves, to challenge each other, to challenge them and challenge ourselves in the weight room, just to match them in terms of being bigger, stronger, faster. Then you have Clark University, who has, they were skyrocketed as a program as well. I know the coach there, Coach Cohen, does a great job. He's a great recruiter. They've built a lot with their program. They have maybe the best face-off guy in the country that not a lot of people know about. And then you have Wheaton, where I coach, and Wheaton and Clark are kind of the 2 liberal arts. They have that liberal arts identity, and both in really good locations. Where any year that those guys could have a phenomenal recruiting class and could play with absolute anybody in the conference, and anybody in general. And then you have Emerson. Coach Colombini, maybe, he might be in his 2nd or 3rd year there. But, he was an assistant at Wheaton before me and has done a phenomenal job recruiting there. They're one of the best film schools, if not one of the best film production schools in the country. So their roster, if you look at their roster, they're pulling guys from LA, San Diego, guys who that's all they want to do. And I was out there a couple weekends ago, and they have one of the best attackmen I've seen in the state of California all year, committed to Emerson. So, I know coach is doing a phenomenal job there, and, it's not going to stop. It's, going to be a constant battle in terms of who's bringing in the best class. But I think the more interesting part is no one's really, necessarily recruiting or looking at the same kids.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It really is, because not only are all the kids that are coming through the conference kind of pursuing different, career interests, they probably are a little different, intellectually, athletically, their experience and their background and where they're from is probably pretty different too. So it's cool to see, which style of play, will become the most successful in years to come in the conference, because it seems like there's a lot of great leaders in each and every program, as you mentioned, and a lot of different pieces coming through each and every program. So cool. I'm curious to see how that plays out. So, being that we only have a few minutes here, two things: what excites you most about the 2020 season? And then lastly, if you can just shed one piece of advice to a lacrosse recruit right now, based on your experience, recruiting for, nearly a decade now, please shed that for us.
Yeah, so I would say what's exciting, what's the most exciting about this coming season is one, our schedule, our non-conference schedule. One of the things I respect most about our head coach, Coach Batty, who spent a year at BU before he came here. So competed in the Patriot League, and then before that was a 25-year head coach at Wellesley High School, and built that program to one of the best high school programs in New England. So he was aiming to have one of the best, schedules in the country. So, this year, if we're not playing a top 10, I feel like it's a top 20 strength of schedule in the country. Our guys understand that challenge. They know who these teams are, and we want our recruits to, see that challenge, and we want that to be a big reason for why they want to come here. We want them to, see that schedule, and want to play against the best, because to win our conference and win our league now, you've got to go against the best in the country to be ready to, obviously play your best lacrosse in May. So Roger Williams, Bates, Union, Endicott, RPI, Bowdoin, Clarkson, Colby, St. Lawrence, Middlebury are non-conference opponents. And then when we get into NEWMAC play, doesn't get any easier with, the Springfield, Clark, MIT, Coast Guard, Wheaton, and Emerson schedule. So I think where our culture has, kind of progressed to, number one, our culture in the weight room, especially with having 2 full-time strength coaches now, that's all they focus on. I think that's going to really help materialize our guys. And, this freshman class that we have now, they're so hungry to learn, especially from our older guys. And I think, we have a serious system, that's going to be building throughout the, the next coming years, where, the older guys can constantly teach our younger guys on what the expectations are, what our language is on the field, because we want our language to provide clarity for everything we do in terms of offense, defense, transition, culture. So I think our guys are looking forward to the challenge we have in our non-conference schedule. And we can't really take, there's no time to take any days off. Every day is going to be a grind to get ready to play against one of the best, schools in the country. And I think no one likes playing those games where you're going to win 20-1. That doesn't do good for anybody. So to know we're going to go against some of the best, I think it's exciting for our guys, and it's definitely super exciting for our coaching staff. But advice for any recruit is play multiple sports. Right now with how as you guys know, fall recruiting, it's gotten as crazy as it's ever been with the amount of events, which is phenomenal. I love identifying guys at those showcases and seeing our upcoming recruits play. But I think I'd prefer going to a Fort Kearney's playoff game, Garden City against MacArthur, or going to see a recruit from Cold Spring Harbor, playing his football game or wrestling match, and see how he responds to adversity and how he responds to his offensive or defensive system in football, as opposed to maybe a meaningless showcase game. So I think you want to take pride in the other sports you play, enjoy your high school process, because you don't get that experience again. And you want to take looks at as many schools as you possibly can, whether it's big school, small school, medium-sized school. You want to be able to meet the players there. So I would say don't just take the first opportunity that comes at you. Just like that wouldn't be the case for, a job opportunity. You want to be able to visit as many schools as you can, whether that's, a good resource for you or not, but you want to be able to meet the coaching staff, meet the players on the team and identify, is this somewhere I would want to go if lacrosse were not an option? Because, that's sort of a cliche thing that coaches and, parents will tell you, but, it really does make a big difference. We want our guys to take, really take pride in where they go to school first, and then that will leak into, our lacrosse program, especially as the years progress and we keep connecting with our alumni and bring in freshmen who really want to, be here at the school first, because that really goes a long way, especially, when it comes to, competing against the MITs and Coast Guards of the world.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, we appreciate your insight and your background and, sharing like where not just your program is, the Babson program's going, but, where the conference is going. It's really exciting for, I think, college lacrosse. And, as more and more kids are playing at the high school level, not as many Division I programs are popping up, right? So you get to, potentially start grabbing some super high level athletes that, maybe weren't playing at the Division III level back in the day. But it's definitely changing. It's getting more competitive. It's getting a lot more interesting, and it's getting really, really, really fun to track and talk about from a media perspective. So, as always, thank you for your time, man, and we look forward to sharing this.
Yeah, Corey, thanks so much. Excited to keep talking to you about the future Long Island recruits we're going to have on campus. And are you guys still doing the New York State regionals this year?
Yes, we'll be doing it. We got a new location. We're heading to SUNY Albany, so it's
awesome.
It's gonna be pretty big. We're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on. Looking forward to staying in touch.
You got it, man.